Hello friends, today is another update from Kyiv, Ukraine. Multiple Russian drones hit the city of Kharkiv today after several Ukrainian attacks in Moscow. We will talk about everything in details. As always, I'll be giving updates on the situation in Ukraine. But before we start, please, if you are new here, support with like and subscribe. It helps to develop. So let's go straight to the point and talk about these events that happened today. Overnight, there was an increased drone activity over Kiev. The Russians were attacking Kiev with Shahed drones again, and according to the report of the Ukrainian Air Force, all of them were intercepted. So 4 out of 4 drones were shot down. Also overnight, there were some explosions reported in the Transnistria region of Moldova. No official information yet, but according to the locals, it was because of the Ukrainian drone that fell near Tiraspol. But later, it was reported that the drone crashed in the forest. So most likely, it was the Ukrainian drone. But what was the purpose of this attack? It's unknown yet. Maybe it was the attempt to destroy the air defense system of the Russians in this area, or maybe it was the reconnaissance one. But right now, we don't have enough information to say for sure. But anyway, it's reported that no one was hurt during this incident. In the morning, there was an emergency shutdown of the thermal power plant in the city of Berdyansk, Zaporozhye region. Currently, more than 170,000 people are without electricity. According to the reports, it was because of the missile strike of the armed forces of Ukraine. And also in the morning, there was an explosion reported in Yefremovka. The locals said that they saw a bright flash over the city, and later it was reported that the city is under fire. The Russians confirmed that they intercepted the missile over the city. But according to the locals, the missile hit the military unit in the city. Most likely it was the HIMARS missile, and it was aimed at the railway infrastructure of the Russians in this area. And at the same time, another HIMARS missile was fired at Mariupol. According to the reports, it was aimed at the railway station, and it was confirmed that it hit the target. The railway infrastructure of the Russians is very important because it allows them to move troops and equipment from the occupied territories of Donbass to the front lines. And also it's very important to cut the supply of the Russians from Crimea to Mariupol. And meanwhile, today, multiple Iranian-produced drones hit the city of Kharkiv. The locals said that they heard several explosions and saw smoke over the city. Later, it was reported that 3 people were injured because of this attack and several houses were damaged. And according to the report of the Ukrainian Air Force, 13 out of 16 drones were shot down. So 13 out of 16, it's not a great result. And this is the second attack of the Russians on Kharkiv in a week. Last Sunday, the Russians hit Kharkiv with the same type of drones, and 1 person was injured because of that attack. According to the report of the Ukrainian Air Force, these drones were launched from the Caspian Sea. And we can assume that these drones were launched from the Russian-occupied territories of the Zaporozhye region. They used to do it from there. Meanwhile, today, there were several explosions reported in Moscow. According to the locals, they heard up to 5 explosions. And later it was reported that the air defense system was working over the city. And according to the statement of the Ministry of Defense of Russia, all the targets were intercepted. But according to the other sources, the Russians were using the S-400 air defense system to intercept these drones. And it's bad news for the Russians because it's a very expensive system, and it's designed to intercept ballistic missiles and cruise missiles. So it means that the Russians were saving their S-300 and S-400 systems for something serious. And later, it was confirmed that 4 drones hit the building of the Ministry of Defense of Russia. And according to the statement of the Russian government, nobody was hurt during this attack. And then we had another attack. This time it was the Ukrainian kamikaze drone that hit the building of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. According to the statement of the Russian government, all these drones were intercepted. But according to the other sources, at least 1 drone managed to hit the building. And in this video, you can see the moment when the drone was allegedly hitting the building. There was a fire on the top of the building and black smoke was coming from it. So we have two buildings of the Russian government that were attacked today. And it's unprecedented because it never happened during the last 424 days of the war in Ukraine. And also it's the first time when the Ukrainian drone hit the building in the center of Moscow. And if you remember just several months ago, the Ukrainians were saying that they won't attack the civilian objects and the civilian population of the Russians. But now it looks like everything changed. And actually, we have a lot of footage of the aftermath of this attack. You can see the burnt cars and destroyed buildings. And as always, we have two different opinions. One of them says that this is the aftermath of the Ukrainian drone attack. Another version says that it's the provocation of the Ukrainians. They made it on purpose to blame the Russians for destroying their own buildings. And who knows which one is true? In the past, the Russians did similar things several times, especially in Donbass. They were blowing up their own buildings and blaming the Ukrainians for it. So both sides can do it. But anyway, these events show us that the front line between Ukraine and Russia is getting closer and closer. And sooner or later, the Ukrainian strikes will hit the civilian objects of the Russians. And the Russians know about it, and they will do the same. Now let's talk about the situation at the front line. And first of all, we have a lot of footage from Crimea. And I think it's very important to show you this video because yesterday I was talking about Lyman, Pershi, and Oricha. But I forgot to mention that Crimea is one of the key cities in this area. And if the Ukrainians can take it under control, it will be the second victory of the Ukrainians after Balaklia and Lyman in the Kharkiv region. And then we go to Avdiivka. And first of all, we have this video from Pisky. You can see how the Russian trench was destroyed by the armed forces of Ukraine. And as you can see, the Russians were not lucky to escape. And then we have this video from Avdiivka. It shows how the Russian ammunition was destroyed by the Ukrainian artillery. And as always, right next to the place where the Russians were hiding, there was a lot of equipment of the Ukrainians. And most likely, it's the consequence of the previous attack. The Russians don't learn anything from it. Then we go to Bakhmut. And first of all, we have this video from the city. You can see the consequences of the recent strike. Then we have this video from the north of the city. According to the report of the General Staff of Ukraine, the Russians are trying to advance from the northeast and northwest of Bakhmut. And in this video, you can see the traces of the Russian equipment on the field. And despite the fact that the weather is really bad, the armed forces of Ukraine keep shooting the Russian invaders and preventing them from advancing. And also, there was an increase of the Ukrainian artillery in this area. You can see the flashes on the field. And this is the work of the Ukrainian artillery against the Russians. And then we go to the Kherson region. And first of all, we have this video from Antonovsky Bridge. It shows how the Ukrainian soldier was targeting the Russian equipment. And right after he did it, the Russians started to flee away. And then we go to Kiselevka. And here we have the interception of the Russian radio. It was made by the armed forces of Ukraine, and it shows that the Russians are losing a lot of equipment in this area. Also, the Russians don't want to fight, and they don't understand why they need to do it. And meanwhile, according to the report of the Institute for the Study of War, the armed forces of Ukraine are advancing in many areas of the front line. And if you remember, yesterday I was talking about this map. So basically, we have a lot of new reports about the advancements of the Ukrainians in many areas. And according to the report of the Institute for the Study of War, the armed forces of Ukraine continue to make progress west of Robotyne and are advancing in the northern part of the village. And also, there is a new report about the advancement of the Ukrainians near Verbova. So basically, we have a lot of good news from the south today. And according to the report of the General Staff of Ukraine, the AFU is gradually expelling the Russians from the territory of Ukraine. So we can only wait for the official reports and good news from the south. That's all for today. Thank you for your attention. See you later.